in your packet, you have, the first one is just the slide I'm going to show here that kind of summarizes our response. All right. So as we had talked about last time, there were many things that I think we were kind of finding in common between our two proposals that were brought forward. As Clint mentioned, we moved ahead in looking at your language, and off to the left-hand side there, the things, these are probably kind of overarching bigger things that we felt like we could support. And the first one was eliminating the discretionary and non-discretionary. That was probably the biggest difference between our languages that we had brought forward. You can see there off to the right, in connection with eliminating that discretionary, non-discretionary, there are some things that we would want to be sure that we took a look at and would like to propose some adjustments and changes to, though, knowing that we're completely eliminating that. Kind of move to that in a minute. I'll keep moving down that left-hand side. The other thing we are ready to support and accept is your recommendation in continuing to maintain the same number of days that are offered, but then adjusting when those additional days get added. So you can see down below, anyone in years 1 to 4 would be given 15 days of PTO. And then between years 5 and 9, that used to be between years 10 and 14, that you would have another day added to 16 days. And then also the adjustment to 10 plus consecutive years receiving 17 days. That used to be 15 plus years. So providing that additional day a little earlier in someone's tenure within the district. And then again, off to the side, some of the things we would want to have considerations for looking at changes. So when we talk about eliminating that discretionary and non-discretionary categories, we wanted to first make sure, I may have missed it in your language. I know sometimes when I get into the red line document or I may have missed it, but I did see where we were delineating and saying that somebody needs to use their current paid time off before they tap into their accrued paid time off. So I think we'd want to make sure we denoted that. Okay. And then the next section is in reference to the blackout days. And that again is really that direct correlation to not having the discretionary and non-discretionary, because those are the days that I think we get most concerned with. And so I know in your original language, your recommendation was that if somebody is wanting to use a day of paid time off on a blackout day, that it would cost them 2 days of PTO. We countered back with that it would cost 3 days. Our basis for that is, I think we mentioned this before, that we haven't changed any of those blackout days. And we continue to think that those are really critical times, the kickoff of the school year and the conclusion of the school year. Those dates that you naturally know would be ones that people would be highly interested in using paid time off and connecting with a holiday, and extending holidays, and then also parent-teacher conferences and professional development days. We then also, did I repeat that? I jumped to the second bullet, I'm sorry. So that was actually the second bullet up there. The first one was the exchange at the end of the school year of any remaining paid time off days. Your original language was that individuals would be able to exchange 5 days of current paid PTO for 75% of the daily sub rate. And we reduced that down to 3 days. Our basis for that is that little bit of not knowing what kind of potential added costs that could incur And that kind of coincides with that overarching concern of a little bit of unknown of what a change like this might bring for added sub costs. So I'd already covered number 2. The third bullet there is in reference to when individuals need to take a day of paid time off during a blackout day, and it's for one of those identified exceptions. I had added some language here to kind of clarify. If you go back to Appendix B, I think it's page 74, that's where that form is that right now individuals use if they want to exchange 2 days of sick leave for a personal day. And the back side of that page, on page 75, lists kind of what those reasons are. So it felt like we needed to keep some reference to that, because I couldn't find in the language that had been brought forward where that was kind of defined, if you will. And then there was just one little correction in there, and it's in our current language, so this wasn't something that was specific to your proposal. It references that there's 2 kind of blackout provisions. I think there's actually 3. We talk about the beginning of the year. We talk about the days tagged to holidays, and then the third one is professional development and parent-teacher conferences. So I just thought we'd correct that while we're in there. And that we would use that same form for individuals that would want to request an exception from having to sacrifice 3 days on a blackout day. And then we would like to add that in that course of that request, HR could ask for documentation to support that exception. Then in the next bracket down below, the language brought forward was allowing for individuals to take 4 to 5 consecutive days off. And we can support that, but we felt like we needed to have something in there to provide a safety net that could be denied in some type of extreme situation. I think of, I don't know, this was an example I was immediately thinking of because we've had these Super Bowl, parades and things here that have happened recently that make you think of sporting events. And I'm thinking we're hosting the World Cup. And if the entire, 3rd and 4th grade in a building are all putting in to take the same week off, that's not going to be a great thing for a building. And so we felt like we needed to have something in there to provide some provision for being able to deny that extended use of paid time off for consecutive days. And then as we had in our original language, wanting to have that sunset clause so that we can have a chance to review this next year to see what that financial impact in our schools has been. And then the last one was in reference to language that was brought forward to increase the number of days that a 2-employee family could use for birth or adoption leave. And we would like to keep it as it is right now, which is 80 days. We recognize that that would be a very nice thing to be able to offer to our 2-employee families, but we also recognize that we provide family medical to our 2-employee families. So we feel like there's already some nice kind of incentives, if you will, and to move to 120 days is 6 months of leave. I mean, it's a pretty extensive amount of leave when you're talking about 2 employees within the district. So. Do you want me to go through the red line language?
I don't know if that's necessary.
Okay.
These are like commonalities and adjustments.
Yeah, and I tried in the red line because once you start adjusting a red line that's already there, I tried to highlight anything that I went and changed so that might help us to, yeah. And I did not clean up any of our numbering or lettering. So, you know, we'll have to put all our brains together.
That, right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I captured everything.
So I have, sorry.
Go for it.
Questions. I noticed the sunset clause. I know last week we had discussed what kind of, if we sunset and determine that this is not the procedure best for Olathe, how will we revert back to what is in our negotiated agreement currently? Have we given that any thought of kind of how we go backwards?
I think that when we put a sunset clause in, and this is, I won't speak for everybody, I'll speak for me. I'm thinking that at that point in time, you know, let's say that we look at, you know, hey, this has been just kind of we've had, you know, double the use of our subs. We have, you know, twice as many classrooms that don't have coverage, that kind of thing. You know, do we need to look at reverting back, or do we need to just make some adjustments in our paid time off language? So that's what I was kind of envisioning. I haven't asked my team if that's what you guys
Yeah, honestly, mine was more the financial interest. Okay, it's way too expensive, and we agree. It's taking money away from potential salary schedule enhancements. Maybe the days change or the trade-in changes. It's the unknown.
Just a renegotiation.
And I'm not saying people will do this, but you know, there are people that use 0 days that now will feel, well, this is just fine because it's PTO. I can convert. We don't know what that conversion is going to be. That won't be a trade-off of sub savings for payout. That's the big unknown kind of financially.
So if I'm understanding them to just try and summarize what you said is, in the event that the sunset would happen, we were to go back to old language, it would be this group who would then renegotiate exactly how that retransition would happen as well. I find myself wondering if 1 year is enough time to know how people change their behaviors and things too.
Right.
So,
Well, and I
But
think
I
we
understand.
would have to, like, you know, we all know from working with kids, like when you implement something new in terms of a behavior strategy, the behavior increases, and not that this is a bad behavior, you know, but good behavior too. And so I think we'd have to, you know, carefully look at what those increases or changes look like a year from now, or we may be, you know, looking at, hey, we really didn't have a change, and so there's not maybe a need to make an adjustment. But yeah, I think Eric, you're right. It probably will take a few years for us to really know.
At least that would give us the flexibility after a year to say if something really escalated cost-wise, to be able to take a look at that versus have that locked in for multiple years.
and the other question I have that might be a question for the law side of things. If we have a sunset clause that says this expires in 2025, and then heaven forbid we have a longer negotiation that time, and we're still, you know, we're going in September, October, November. What happens if we're on a continuing contract that says this thing sunsetted in 2025, but we're still functioning on that contract because we haven't finished negotiations for the next year? How's that? I don't expect you to know the answer off the top of your head. Just a question that we should consider.
It's a good question here. Yeah, I would think you revert back to the original language, but it's complicated, and then as Michelle's getting, then we're into this world of and have a new system and the terminology. Yeah, I could look into that, maybe, because I'm not for sure.
Or if there's some way, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
If there's a way to phrase it in such a way that
Yeah.
protects us from that happening.
Well, and I think that brings about a question I would have too, in terms of, you know, this is going to take significant reprogramming of what we currently
Sure.
set up, right? So if we were in that scenario, I don't know that we could even get Oracle reprogrammed to go back, you know what I mean? So there'd be a lot of trickle down. We'd have to.
So maybe the phrasing would be that the next, somehow tied to the next approved agreement. Or something,
Right,
some way to make it so it, like,
Yeah.
instead of having it just automatically end at the end of the 2025 year.
Yeah, you could say it sunsets with the next approved agreement, some language like that.
Yeah, that might be.
Kind of a
Safer.
saving, kind of a savings
Yeah.
clause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And am I understanding that like the sunset is not to necessarily go back to what currently is? So then is that really a sunset? Right, like if there's no intention of going back to what's currently printed, that's not
Would
a
it just be a
sunset.
renegotiation?
It's just a
Like a notice item?
yeah, it would just be a new notice item, wouldn't it?
An automatic.
Not automatic negotiation.
Mhm.
We can look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Word that.
Yeah.
I mean, the intent, I mean, I think we're on the same page on the intent, that something where it escalate financially, sub costs or anything like that, that we want to look at that because that takes
Yeah.
money away from what we put in the salary schedule too. So I think we all want to look at that, just how do we word that, make sure that it's.
Well, and there's so much language in there, you know, the leave policy is one of those things that sometimes you have to live through things to figure out, oh, you know, that wasn't very clear. We've got a lot of these kind of situations that we have a void and we don't ever address it. Those are the things that in our HR world, we come across. So just to be able to have conversation to say, how can we better clarify this?
Another option, like we have it as a another permissive, like, if we know that something that we need to adjust, a permissive item that we both agree to that doesn't count towards.
The items in the notice.
Right, or we know there might be some adjustments that we make.
I had a lingering question about the discipline policy. And I should have looked back at the discipline policy or how our current language is. We talked last time about, we didn't have like a deadline for when someone needed to put in for leave, if they're using leave in a pattern where it could be considered, gosh, you've missed every professional development day for the last 2 years. Can you talk through the language that you propose so that I think when we caucus, we can go back and kind of think through?
Oh, yeah. I think in going back to what we had initially proposed was, you know, we had a stipulation of wanting 2-day notice. And I think I spoke then of the difference that makes in us being able to fill a classroom position if we have that notice. It's the night before and morning of that become really difficult to fill. And I had included in there that if we found a consistent pattern of that we could then, you know, follow up with disciplinary action of some kind in order to ensure that didn't become a chronic for someone. Is that what you're referring to, Leon?
Yeah, I think if I'm reading right, this new red line is starting from the language that we had proposed last time. Is that right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so that language about the discipline policy is not in
No.
this.
Our next item is further discussion of the workers' compensation or solid leave that we have both proposed, but in 2 different ways.
Do we want to do what we did last time, which is caucus now about,
So our brainstorm.
yeah, about
twofold
PTO?
names.
Is there a preference either way?
Yeah, we just want to be cognizant of time,
Mhm.
right, to get back and.
I mean, we don't have to do it the same. We can, I mean.
Yeah, no, I think so. It would just, obviously just have to be cognizant of time.
Yeah.
Just trying to get all to the last item anyway.
Sure. As if we do caucus, we just said this amount of time.
Let's say,
10 minutes.
10, 15 minutes, yeah.
I think 10.
10's good.
10 minutes.
Okay.
A really great benefit that members in Olathe NEA have is being a part of a larger organization like Kansas National Education Association and even the National Education Association. By being a member, we have access to staff at all levels, state, local, and national, to help us in the work we do. For instance, I can call KNEA if I have a question about a licensure for an educator so that I can get them the resources that they need. If I need help with a legal question or a member has a rights question, we can access a team of lawyers at Kansas National Education Association to give us immediate feedback on that issue. We even have staff from the National Education Association who have come in and helped us with membership and organizing here at the local level. So oftentimes that work is unseen or unknown, but we are really all tied together, all 3 million of us, in the benefit of accessing staff at multiple levels to support you in the local organization.
As I'm already
Approximately 96.
96. Thank you.
Currently have in those positions.
Yeah.
Cool.
Potentially. Don't know. Unknown. Hey. All right, well, we tried to 2 minutes over the 10 minutes. But, I think we really, we appreciate how you took a look at our proposal, and I think we have a lot of things we can agree on. We, of course, in 10 minutes, then came up with some more questions. Sure. So I don't know if we want to kind of walk through those now. Is that the best use of our time? Or
probably, so
Okay.
it's something we have to go back and get some information on that we have time.
yeah. All right. Do we want to just work through the bullets and kind of go from there?
Yeah.
So looking at, third bullet down, employees may request an exception. We may want to consider looking at that Appendix B document and getting that revised.
It'd have to be completely revamped.
Yeah.
Because it is completely based on the current language, so
Right.
it won't make any sense in its current form. I started to look at it and then.
Like, the intent would be illness bereavement would be a reason why it wouldn't be 2 or 3 to 1, right?
Right.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
yes. I think all of those reasons on the back are going to stay the same. I think it's the front form page we would need to.
Well, I'm saying, like, there's even like one of the first reason that's listed right now is illness when your illness
Yes.
bereavement time is used up. And I think that would just change to like illness and bereavement. So, yeah, but yeah,
As kind
need
of,
to.
as a follow-up to that one, the documentation, if somebody has a cold, depending on the doctor.
Right.
So I think that's just, we just kind of have to like process through that a little bit.
I would agree, yeah. I think we're thinking of those situations like the example you gave, Leanne, and this is very rare, but this is the world I live in. The situation where somebody for 2 years in a row hasn't come to a single professional development day. Like, we got to think of something to be able to say, hey,
To go back.
yeah, at this point, we need to have some documentation.
Thinking about the fourth bullet down, the PTO option for 4 to 5 consecutive days. We looked at the language that you had written in for a potential denial.
Right.
Can we talk through that a little bit?
Sure, I truly, I took a stab in the dark at coming up with some language. I don't know how to quantify, I guess it's one of those situations, and it's probably a little similar to what brought forward your interest in moving to paid time off and our interest too in treating educators as professionals. I think that speaks a little bit to treating our principals as professionals, that if they are the ones tasked with making sure a building is running, and if they have a situation where their building could potentially not run, I need to give them the professional discretion to be able to say, I am so sorry, but the entire 4th and 5th grade cannot be out for this entire week together.
So in the typical setting, the human resources administrator responsible for PTO would be the building admin, is that?
Well, if they're gonna ask for the 4 to 5 consecutive days in your language, they have to get approval 2 weeks in advance
Gotcha.
from their building administrator or supervisor, I think is kind
Yeah.
of what we had put in there. So yeah, that's what I took.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because currently we can operate under caps that we have in place. If people are requesting personal
Right.
leave, this version doesn't
There's
have
none-
those.
Right, and that was, when I sat down with kind of our core HR group to talk about, hey, let's look at this, because we've got to start, if we're gonna potentially move to something like this, I wanted to have other people's, ideas in the room. That was one of the first things that came up was, hey, we often have those situations where a building's getting close and we can just send a quick, hey, this date's really high. If you're thinking of taking a personal day, just know you're gonna want to get that in. And Shelley Longstreth, who's the current individual that manages those, says, that's really helpful because a lot of times people will reach out and say, you know what, I'm gonna do Monday instead of Friday or that kind of thing. So, maybe that's, I don't know, that might be something for us to kind of further and explore and think about. That might be another way of getting to that
Yeah.
same end, if you will. I don't know.
I think we worked through the sunset clause, talking about we could be able to write it as a permissible item. And then, of course, because it is the last bullet, we had little to no time to talk about the maintaining the current offering for 2 employee for birth or adoption of a child. I think that's one we're really going to want to go back to and talk as a group about. We have current employees who are 2 employee families who, very radical idea, but if they got divorced, would then have more leave for their birth of a child than if they were together. So just want to think through that one a little more. So that was our 10 minutes.
Move on to ordinance content.
Let's do it.
Okay.
After reviewing your language, I went back and tried to kind of adjust that paragraph that I would suggest. So I'm going to focus first on kind of on the these first 2 paragraphs of yours. I kind of saw that you're listing all the types of ways that an assault could occur, like who creates the assault, so to speak, and just the interest that we also have of trying to make the employee whole. So I redlined what we had originally proposed. So I'll just kind of read it. If when an employee is physically injured as a result of an assault while performing their job-related duties. The way I did that is it doesn't have to be here. You discipline student at Shawnee Mission during basketball game, dad punches you in the head. It's a work-related incident, workers' comp kicks in. So we're not It doesn't matter where you're at. It's when you're on the job, so to speak. The coverage is there.
Top would work for our supplemental contract
Yes,
employees.
right.
Yeah.
It's a job-related duty. And supporting medical provider documentation is provided, indicating the need to be absent from work. Any leave used while under workers' compensation protocol shall be restored to the employee's accrued leave balance. Now, let me explain that. I have this to Thomas McGee, our administrator, to try to figure out, is that the right wording? What we're trying to get to there is when you get injured, we try to get you to go to that doctor. The doctor makes that determination. You may wait 3 days because you just can't get into that doctor. I'm saying that's protocol. You did it right. You acknowledge that Todd says, hey, you need to go see a doctor. I think that's pretty serious. And it lasts all the way through. Either they determine, no, you're okay, you can go back. Or it's a long-term thing and you finally get released 3 months later. Whatever that spectrum is what I'm trying to describe in protocol. I don't know if that's the right term. Chris and I even kind of tried to do some research on what do you call that, but that's the intent, is from the second it happens. But the documentation is really not to sit for, I'm not accusing people of this, it's the scenarios we have to think of. It's coming up on a 3-day weekend. I'm gonna take 3 days, and then I'm gonna decide to go to try to get to the doctor on Monday, and now I can't get until Thursday. You really have to act when you get injured,
Right.
not a back and forth kind of thing.
And that's.
And
kind of our
that's
current-
expectation now.
Yeah.
It's just trying to wrap it. With regards to the other language on the clothing and personal property, we already do that. I don't know that we want to narrow it to just an assault. There's a variety of reasons. Our risk management has a fund. Our deductibles are $300,000, $500,000, but this isn't an assault type thing, but rocks thrown in the windshields by lawnmowers. Student gets glasses, we replace the glasses. Greg Kiger had to tackle a woman and ripped his pants, we replaced the pants. Computer destroyed in kind of student thing, $1,200. I don't know about the caps and narrowing it, and it really doesn't fit in the workers' comp. Maybe it's more of an education piece that something in, that, did you know that if you ever experience a physical, material loss of property, there also has to be this, I don't want to say investigation, but there's an expectation of securing things. Like, you don't go out to recess and just leave everything wide open. So we try to find that out. So, so it's like, I need a new phone. So, oh, you took my phone, you need to go get a phone. And literally, I hate saying those things, but those are you wouldn't believe the scenarios that come through our office. That's why I didn't think we want to do it in trying to create kind of a property damage policy now. Do the workers' comp piece, educate that we already have this process in place. Here's how you access that if you do have a loss. If that makes sense.
Where can that be accessed right now?
I'm sorry.
Where can that be accessed right now?
It really is. It's probably more word of mouth. You go to the principal knows, you call them a little hazard, and they kind of do it.
Okay.
We probably need to get that a little more widespread that the staff understands that there is access to that.
I'll get calls every now and again. So it'll be maybe a principal call. Hey, Chris, we have someone, the situation's come. Oh yeah, it's kind of, as John said, it's a bit more of a word of mouth thing.
So we probably need to do not only providing that professional development with our staff, but our administrators. We need that as well.
It also they flow into our safety department, like Tiger Brad called a little bit. Sometimes staff will obviously.
Yeah, sometimes they have to get
kind of different scenarios, all kind of end up with some type of property damage potentially or something like that.
And are those things kind of assessed on a case-by-case basis, or is there a list of if X is destroyed, we will cover that. If Y is destroyed.
There is
sorry,
a
but-
standing list because there's all kinds of different combinations. But generally, we kind of err on the replacement unless it's your third offense of your phone seems to keep getting stolen from your, and we told you to lock it up or put it in your desk or take it with you to recess. Probably say this is the last one again.
I know we talked through this a little last time, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Because this policy is not a part of the negotiated agreement, this would be us agreeing as professional counsel to forward this as a recommendation that the board pass this new language.
Basically, that I could submit, we could submit to the board and say, we've run this by professional counsel. This change and adjust it as it has to.
Because it has to apply to more than the bargaining unit, right?
And we can't wait a year if something changed in workers' comp law for one of the other paragraphs, we have to enact it right away. So that'd be the, if we come to agreement on it, so to speak, we mock it up for both.
Were you waiting to hear for sure if this was the way to word this?
Yeah, and maybe when we think we have it the way we want, we get it into more of that. I can run it by them and then they tweak it in any way.
The spirit of
I can
it.
ask about the protocol, I just didn't know how to word it.
Yeah.
They may not have a great word for it either, but we'll find out. They're just in renewals right now, so it was really hard to get hold of them.
But I think the intent, what you're saying, is once the teacher reports to their principal they've been injured, that's basically
They're on the
the
clock.
protocol. Like, they're gonna be there.
So it should be that day.
We would maybe want to have, really just for the minutes, the nurses in most buildings, they're the safety representatives and that are going to be involved. in a lot of those workers' comp things also, so we want to have that education piece for them.
John, I think you spoke to this last time, so I'm still processing to understand.
Sure.
There is a piece of our proposed policy that talks about loss of income,
Yes,
because that addresses leave. So could you talk through a little bit
sure.
that?
I didn't include the loss of income because one reason is, there's a lot of reasons. One of the main reasons is it's tax exempt. Like, let's say you get on workers' comp, there's going to be this 2/3 of the average of 26 weeks pay, which can be all over the place. If I was a sub and became a teacher, I was a principal and became a sub, it could really distort how much is that 1/3 you're out. But in the end, you get darn close because it's tax exempt to what you were making as a salary. So the calculation of it, the determination of it, what's that?
The workman comp
Yes,
compensation
It's
is
tax
tax-free.
exempt. yeah, it's tax exempt. So when you get 2/3 of your average pay, you're almost getting your full pay without knowing everybody's tax brackets. That's the other challenge. Like, okay, I'm gonna make you whole. We already say we can't go above being whole. And could I have your 1040 so I can see what bracket you're in, you and your husband and or your wife? So I thought getting the leave and just the perception, quite honestly, I have 240 days, this person has none. Hey, wait a minute, I don't want to be whole. Give me the money rather than giving me my days back like this month. Kind of this negotiation for, I'd rather have pay than days. Well, it's not written that way. I thought the days were far more important, and for the minor difference that you're going to have between that non-tax amount and what the full amount would be. So that was the reason.
Yeah. Would that be, never mind. I was gonna ask a question about classified, but this would not apply to classified. That would apply to classified because that's board doc. Our potential.
Correct.
Okay, so I retract my question.
Five-minute caucus. All right, thanks for letting us have that time to caucus. We also a question, I think, just one that we came back with.
Yeah, the question that we had, going back to your language, talks about restoring employees' accrued leave balance. What if the employee has 0 leave?
That kind of changed the whole scenario then, when that even if you had 200 days, are you asking to just, if I'm out 5, you get 5 no matter what your balance is? Or I don't know how to handle that one. Oh, you can, I'm gonna fix you, you have none.
I think in our current, if you
Our
have
current-
to leave, then you're docked
Yeah.
pay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's where,
Basically, they
when
didn't have
we,
anything to dock.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. for whatever reason, they have no leave left, they're back from an extended
Yeah, I would,
illness or whatever.
I think the intent would be not to dock. It's just to hold it steady.
Would be like, yeah, hold harmless. So if
Yeah.
they didn't have any leave
Straight
to
up.
dock, it almost be a gift for those days, basically.
I'm just thinking forward then, how that impacts everything. Because right now, when you run out, you kind of build it back, but you were gonna give it back. I'm just trying to think of the people that have balances and don't. I understand what you're asking.
Okay.
Can I?
I figured it was one of those,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to follow up, I think we support the language once we can get clarification on that. We would like to see it included in the agreement as well as board policy. I know that your hesitation was if workers' compensation law were to change, you could act more quickly on a board policy than if you're in a negotiations process. So we definitely could add language in where, should something change with law, and really all our entire agreement is subject to changes in the law, if you will, then we could trigger coming back to this.
Reopener, word, right?
Yes.
Anything else?
It was not about the language here, but if there is a document that contains the information about reimbursement for items, like who to contact or what that process is, just to ensure that common language and verbiage is being used when expressing that building to building.
All right. Move on to item 5.
Are you sure we have enough time?
If we
You're not
don't get
getting out of this
started.
one.
That's a joke.
Crickets talk, crickets.
You're in denial.
Yeah, I am. That's really hard. I see it.
Everyone on the road appreciates that.
It was time to be.
And I don't have to, I just emailed everybody a copy of this presentation on PDF, so you've got it also. All right, so I'm gonna go through a couple of elementary scheduling updates. And obviously a lot of changes are possible with the elementary scheduling document guidelines. And the other thing, they overlap is the need for an additional 30 minutes of plan time was agreed to from the 22-23 contract. So you'll see some overlap in some of this, but we'll go through it and then, of course, give everybody an opportunity for questions. All right, so Appendix B is what we're primarily talking about, the negotiated agreement. These are the areas that are just kind of part of that. I think it's pages 78 to 80 or 81. But these are the different areas that are covered here in that elementary scheduling guideline. Just in case you were living under a rock, we have new start times that are going to be beginning next year. At the regular December board meeting, the board voted change start and end times, and then I highlighted elementary school, the new start and end time, 8:55 to 3:55. Hope I got that one right. And then on 2/7, the bargaining unit ratified the new contract time. You can see elementary and Harmony are 8:15 to 4:15. And then part of the MOU down there, you can see the implementation of the additional elementary school plan time that was agreed to in the 22-23 contract. So here is that language exactly as it was written. Olathe NEA and administration of USD 233 agreed to collaboratively with the Elementary Plan Time Committee address the joint interests of educator retention, recruitment, and fiscal sustainability by ensuring that the 24-25 negotiated agreement will include a minimum of 30 minutes of additional plan time for A3 rotation for all certified elementary educators. So that was the language that was ratified back in 22-23. You also may have heard that the elementary computer class program is ending at the conclusion of this particular school year. I just kind of put the wording in there that was sent out by administrators. The 24-25 school year, the district will no longer offer the elementary computer program as it currently exists, but will be reimagining how we incorporate technology education into our daily instruction. Obviously, this is that would result in 5 special classes to 4 specials available to our elementary students: art, music, PE, and library. So after that decision, there was the creation of an elementary task force. This wasn't a decision-making body, rather a special committee consisting of a representative group formed expressly for the purpose of studying and providing feedback on topics such as the master's schedule, that commitment of the additional 30 minutes of plan time, the rotation of specials, the A through E rotation, considering an A through D rotation. We're going back to the traditional Monday through Friday, and then possible before and after school responsibilities. And there were other topics that were discussed. That's just kind of a sample. This was the representation on the elementary task force for some principals, association reps, executive board member, our president was on there. Yeah. We also had representatives for music, art, library, counselors, special education teachers, classroom teachers, and then of course our general administration that helped create the task force to begin with. And Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, when they created this, did they also reach out to you and ask you to kind of reach out to individuals from each of these different job capacities?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Dr. Smith asked me to round up some amazing educators to be a part of this. And then I just weaseled my way on.
Very good. Okay, so a couple of the options that were discussed in the task force and thought about were to account for 4 special classes, were to just continue with the A through E rotation, transitioning to an A through D rotation, or potentially transitioning to a Monday through Friday rotation schedule. So over the next couple slides, what I'll do is I'll go through each one of those three and kind of talk about some of the pros and cons. This may not be an exhaustive list, but it's some of the things that were discussed in the task force as we were going along. So starting with the A through E rotation schedule, a couple of the pros, minimal changes to the negotiated agreement. That would be nice. We wouldn't have to go through that as much. And then, of course, our elementary staff are already familiar with an A through E rotation schedule. Some of the challenges would be scheduling 4 specials into a 5-day rotation. In other words, what are we going to do with that 5th day on the rotation schedule? One of the things that we'd have to maybe consider would be our specialists teaching a computer or a technology class, because we don't have another special class to fill that 5th day of the week. And then an increase in time where specialists aren't teaching within their specific area of expertise and also what they're most passionate. Transitioning to an A through D rotation. Some of the pros, 4 specials aligning with a 4-day rotation. It's nice and clean. Our specialists would have the opportunity to get some more time with students in their specific area of expertise. I think we did the math and found out that it would be about 11 additional special classes that they would have during the course of the school year. And then some of our singletons or specialists could potentially be assigned a consistent day of the week for PLCs with others that are in that same capacity. In other words, art teachers would be able to PLC with other art teachers, PE with other PE teachers, and so on. Yes, it would probably end up needing to be something somewhat virtual as we're spread out all over the district, but there would be that possibility. Some of the cons would be the changes to the elementary scheduling document that we would need to do. How to make sure that we're maintaining PLCs at 1 time per week for 30 minutes to prevent PLCs from occurring more than 1 time per week. So for example, we have an A through D rotation, we have a 5-day week, A, B, C, D, and if we have PLC on A days, well, we're gonna have a Monday and a Friday with PLC. So we need to do some problem solving with that. The additional class periods for specialists might also require some additional materials and supplies. That was brought up in the task force conversations as well. All right, what about the transition to a Monday through Friday schedule? One of the pros is that it aligns nicely with our middle and high school friends. I bet a lot of our parents and guardians would like to have Monday through Friday so they can know what day each one of the specials is taking place. And then once again, our singletons could be assigned a consistent day of the week for PLCs with others in that same capacity. So same kind of thing with the A through D schedule. One of the cons is that many of our days off from school are Mondays and Fridays, which could result in some inequity with our special classes that are assigned on any of those days. That was, for those of you that are maybe relatively new to our school district, that was the genesis of the whole rotation schedule that we did, is because we didn't want to shortchange those specials that were occurring on Mondays and Fridays. So that's where the A, B, C, D, E schedule came into play. And then once again, the challenge of scheduling 4 specials into kind of a 5-day rotation. All right, so this is kind of recommended next steps is that we would then take the insights and feedback from the elementary task force and share them with the elementary plan time subcommittee for consideration. So some of the considerations that would want to be discussed. First of all, the pros and cons of the various rotation schedules that we just looked over. And then one of the other things that we need to do, once again, because there's this overlapping of these areas of plan time and changing the schedule, is utilizing that time at the beginning of the new elementary contract to increase general plan time by 30 minutes per week. So for example, doors are opening at 8:35. The students could congregate in separate locations like the gym, library, wet areas until 8:45, and then school officially begins at 8:55. So at 8:45, the hounds would be released and they would be able to head back to their respective classrooms that would potentially require a rotation of staff members that were assisting with supervision for that 10 minutes, that 8:35 to 8:45 time when the doors open, but they're not heading back to their actual classroom at time. And the additional plan time could come from that 8:15 to 8:45 time on those days when you did not have a morning supervision. Okay. Questions? No? All right.
Well, Todd, thanks for being the one to present all that.
My honor.
Okay, can I ask what, if we're discussing that, so recommendations from the elementary task force are gonna be taken to the elementary plan time committee. I don't believe that committee has met in about a year and a half, 2 years or so.
Right.
To discuss the pros and cons. Are we expecting that committee to have any additional pros and cons to add? To tack on to what has already been established as pros and cons for those schedules?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that would be a part of it is seeing what other things need to be for consideration. And then ultimately, jump in if you want to, but ultimately, I think that the subcommittee would be asked to kind of make some formal recommendations to professional counsel. But yes, I do think that there would be an opportunity to provide additional pros and cons.
Okay. There's also language in our agreement, and please forgive me because I do not know the page number right now, that plan time must occur during student contact time. So the recommendation of adding an additional 30 minutes before, are we proposing we change that negotiated agreement language now? Or in addition to the elementary plan time committee, or I'm sorry, the elementary blah, blah, scheduling document. Are we proposing to change that language as well? And if somebody's got a page number, that would help.
Probably 78,
There's a
79.
piece on 78 that says the time between 8 and 8:20 and 3:44 o'clock currently is not counted as plan time.
Yeah, so that would fall under that.
Well,
elementary.
I wasn't here when that was written in policy, but my suspicion would be that the reason that that was included specifically is because we do have a requirement to have a minimum of 30 minutes for it to be considered plan time. And neither of those would be 30-minute blocks. And so I don't know if that necessarily means the same thing as it needs to be during the student contact time or not, but you're right. That's part of the language that would need to be considered and probably removed.
Okay. Has the committee, Todd, I'm gonna fire him off, I'm really sorry. Has the task force, I'll make that delineation. Is there any discussion, is there anything you can report to this governing body about the severe concerns for lack of time? We have 6 schools that will have over 20 sections next year with the elimination of the CLA positions. And I've got to say, to this body and to my friends here, that I'm using data that has been given to me by people that are very concerned about this. So we have 6 schools that are going to have over 20 sections with the elimination of the CLA position. 20 sections is going to be like the maximum that a specialist teacher can have through an A through D rotation. In order for teachers to get that 300 minutes of plan, the additional 30, we'd have to hire 8 certified staff members to cover and travel in between schools. Is there any information on what that looks like? I mean,
I think at the task force, we were told that there was a meeting with Dr. Donovan coming up, but we don't have that information. At least it hasn't been delivered to the task force yet.
I would agree with that. It absolutely was brought up and discussed and expressed. The colleagues did a great job of expressing the concerns that would come along with that kind of workload. I think we would be required, one way or another, to make sure that we are providing at least 300 minutes of plan time for everybody. And what that would do for hiring, that would be more of a human resources thing. Right now, we have a couple of schools, Green Springs included, that is providing support to our largest buildings. Green Springs provides support to Clearwater Creek. So that would be part of the discussion. And I'm guessing that's part of what Dr. Donovan would be kind of vetting out as well. So definitely on the radar, but I don't have the answer to it.
Thank you.
Do we have an idea of the timeline? I know, elementary educators are feeling urgency.
Yeah.
I want to know, what is my day gonna look like next year?
Yeah.
We love committees because it gets educator voice in the room. So obviously we do love those, but what's kind of the idea of the timeline?
I guess I don't really know. It would maybe depend to some degree on if this is something that would be expedited and pushed through like an MOU earlier, or if it's part of our overall negotiations that sometimes go
Even
into
just getting the committee together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the committee together. We'd love to do yesterday. And so, Leanne and I haven't really had anything officially discussed, but we understand, principals understand that there's a sense of urgency here. We want to get these things figured out as well. And so I think as soon as possible, I know that's not a really specific answer, but as soon as possible, I think that you and I even talked about maybe looking at a Monday coming up here, like this Monday, as quickly as that. But the schedules have to kind of coordinate a little bit, and if it meant that we would need to meet virtually instead of in person, I don't know. But yes, I know we all want to get some clarity as far as what next year is going to look like and what schedules are going to look like as soon as possible.
Could you speak to the idea behind district's decision to create a task force and not just immediately kick it to the elementary plan time committee?
I would have to defer back to Liz and Jill and our general administration, and kind of back to am I still projecting back to the slide of kind of the purpose that they had there. I think hopefully what I would say is that the intent would be to try and get some perspectives of the individuals that are listed here on some of the pros and cons, and then ultimately bringing that forward to the subcommittee. And just to be completely candid, it's hard in something like this and as big as this to know everything that needed to go through a negotiation process versus things that just would be able to be decided by. And so I think that's part of the challenge as well.
I think a frustration I have of going back to the elementary plan time committee stems back to when that committee was initially charged to come up with a solution. They presented a solution to professional counsel, and it wasn't able to move through for a variety of reasons. And so that's how we came to the point of, well, we're going to have additional plan time, but we don't know how we're going to do that. And so now moving that conversation back to that committee, I think we don't have clarity really on the weight of the decision that might come out of that committee. Are they a decision-making body, or are they like the task force? They just bring concerns, and then we don't have clear answers. So that's where my concern lies with that proposal.
Sure. So I don't think that they would necessarily be the decision-making body. Honestly, the decision-making body is our union unit. They're the ones that would be voting to ratify any recommended changes to the negotiated agreement, which would include changes to the rotation schedule, and things such as that. Are you agree
Yeah, I
with that?
think it's similar to what the salary schedule committee did, right? A lot of that work in the background and brought forward to the whole group.
Yeah, my point was they did bring a proposal forward. I mean, we did, Todd and I were on that committee.
I think professional counsel gave a charge to that committee to come back, if I remember right. But I think we had a charge from us to that committee to bring a proposal back.
Yep.
Kind of a defined task. If you will.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good, sorry.
I would also argue salary committee had something to negotiate. The information that we have has left us kind of, we're at a pros and a cons list. We're not at near a point to negotiate.
More finished product.
A product, period, I think. I think, and that this, I understand sitting at this table requires a decorum of professionalism and stoicism. So I'm going to try and convey that. The sheer magnitude of the changes our elementary staff is experiencing, tumultuousness, cannot be understated. People do not know what their daily lives are going to look like. Teachers don't know where this extra 20 minutes is going to come from, who will be with their students, what the organization of the day. Specialists do not know at all. Aspects of my job that are required under my contract, we have no answers. And we've been asking for answers for a long time now. I think decisions were made without regard for elementary educators' perspective, duties, obligations. And I think we are very much on the back foot trying to figure out how to make something work without really thinking about what the ramifications will be. I think we talk a lot about sharing data on educator recruiting and retention. And PTO is very good, and we worked hard, this body here worked hard, and we are getting places. We're meeting in the middle, and language for workman's comp is very good, and we're meeting in the middle. But we cannot tell a very large portion of our staff that is difficult to fill in these positions what their day looks like next year. And so I think we know this at the table. I think it needs to be stated. This is, I believe, priority number one. I think elementary educators, unfortunately, are kind of last to receive things because our schedules seem simpler. This meeting is scheduled 4 o'clock. You know, we are scheduling up until the minute of elementary educators contract day. I just think this, not to negate the work we have done in professional counsel in this negotiation session now, I think kicking it to the elementary plan 10 committee is a step for delay in making a decision. And I think anything that we can decide together on what will be decided, who will be deciding, things like that. I think the sooner we can do that, the more reassurance and respect we're going to give to our elementary staff.
What concerns for delay, I guess I look at as a committee is you're gonna have more elementary reps. I do have elementary experience as well as middle. But like you're asking our group to go ahead and formulate schedules. I'm trying to get what your statement was.
I think the formation of the task force by Dr. Smith was very good. We are never going to sit here and say no, thanks, we're good. We don't want to talk about it. We're never gonna say that. I think, the formation of the task force was very reactionary instead of proactive. We obviously, I think most people got the news at the same time that the elimination of a classified position in our elementary buildings was gonna happen. And I think, I don't know if the problems or delays we are experiencing now were necessarily thought of prior to making that decision. So I'm not asking this body to come up with a schedule to give. I think I don't know what I'm asking for, honestly, an answer of some sort from us, from kind of anybody. I think
I think we were trying to seek some of these assurances
Seek some
during that
assurances.
MOU process as well that we went through in
Mm-hmm.
January. When we brought some concerns forward from educators when we were working through contract times, that if we could work through these pretty minute details for each level, then we would, without a doubt, be able to get those contract times carried through. And that, at that point, we weren't able to do that. And so here we are bargaining those, if you will.
I think the other concern when it comes to the time is there's 8 items in Appendix B. And none of them are just simple language tweaks, right? They are all significant differences. And right now, I mean, we're sitting at almost April. If it's taking a week to get the task force together, another week for the subcommittee to prepare something, then, I mean, we're meeting weekly at this point. Our goal is that we would be able to put this to a vote for the bargaining unit before we went to summer break like we did last year. If we don't, think of the dominoes that are gonna fall. Currently, like, looking at the presentation, the one slide goes from, we have the language from the 22-23 year that says per A through E rotation for all certified elementary educators, all of that. And then the next one says, but we don't have A through E anymore because we only have 4 specials now. The CLA position is in our negotiated agreement. So like, if we are walking into the doors next school year and we're still trying to figure this out, that is a mess. And complete mess. And like, I mean, I as a high school person, I can't imagine, like, that makes me nervous.
Don't know if we have block schedule or not.
Right, like, I mean, we have things to be nervous about, but we don't have the 8 different documents that need to be touched to be able to, like, get organized for the first day of school. And the urgent, like we said, the urgency cannot be expressed enough, that like, this is scary for our educators that like are planners, right? Like, even the ones that aren't the type A planners, like, they still want to know what their position is going to be. And at this point, it is affecting retention. I mean, how, like, I can't imagine wanting to, like, know that I'm going to walk through the doors next year not knowing what it's going to be. But if I can, you know what another program is, maybe that's appealing. And I just want to say, like, I feel deeply for our elementary educators. And this is, like, I agree, this is priority 1. Like, I don't know.
So are you not wanting to put it back to the elementary committee? Are you wanting us to
What would the charge be for that committee? What would we charge? What would that outcome we hope they come back with be?
Like formal recommendations, suggestions, like.
I guess I would suspect it would probably be which rotation schedule they can be, A through B, Monday through Friday, or some other.
And I think you basically, be an entire rewrite of the elementary scheduling document that comes from charging the committee and like,
Yeah.
hey, do this and work fast and come with a proposal, or whether that's something that we do through a more traditional negotiation, like that's the piece that's needed.
And Eric, I'll even say, both myself, Dr. Wheat and Leanne have met to kind of put Post-its on, we know this is gonna need to change in language, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think all parties are just unsure what those changes are gonna be.
How quickly does that committee come together?
We don't have it scheduled here.
We have members that have retired and.
It's been nearly 2 months since we ratified the time, so.
And then I think, this is not to you, Dr. Reed, I know you are
Go ahead.
delivering.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah.
But I think one of also the frustrations is that, like, obviously we do want to work together to make things the best we can. And having multiple voices in the room is a way to do that, which is why the task force was really helpful to kind of surface that. But, where was the elementary committee when we talked about changing the A through E rotation? Where was the elementary committee? And I'm saying, like, yes, we would, like, in theory, love to have an elementary committee to help us with all of this. But we've had all this time where decisions have been made where they weren't brought together to bring in those perspectives. So I do understand why it's kind of like, okay, wait, you don't want the committee together? And I get why that seems like, but I think the larger piece is, I wish we would have had that committee meeting since we wrote that language how long ago, to start looking at some of these things so that our elementary educators would have a little bit more certainty. So I just come with a clear.
I really think that's a mistake on all of us, that it's not just one side or the other. To be honest with you, I just started this committee and middle school has not met. And we don't even have a person in charge of it. So how do they know where to meet? So again, when we do at our start of the year meetings, it would be good to highlight who's the person in charge and when they are meeting. The calendar committee brings recommendations for us and we go ahead and make decisions based on that. So yes, I agree. We can continue. I feel the stressors I have, like you said, is all of that too as well. It's coming from every, even secondary and elementary. I know it may not be as severe as elementary is, but we, like you said, is we can continue to dwell on it or we can kind of move towards what we need to get done. It sounds like to me, what we're hearing is you guys, we need the elementary committee together. We need to look at what members are on there, similar to what sounds like Dr. Smith's approach. She worked through Leanne to get all those reps. Same thing should happen if we have retirees. Let's work through that. I hear it, but I'm a doer. So what do we need to do?
I think we are in a position to do, absolutely. We're
So-
ready to do.
And I
Is the
think
group ready to go?
the frustration comes from decisions that we couldn't have been a part of. Like, we were not part of the reduction of CLAs.
And it's the nature of our job. I mean, I can only control what I control. This group
Right.
can't control our elementary task force, or this group can't control our elementary rep. So I think maybe the best use of our time would be, let's look at that group and let's see who needs to be taken off of it, so we can be ready for Monday for Todd and Leanne, because it sounds like to me that's what the the group drive needs to be. Reviewed in the fall, it's been ready.
I mean, we did
I thought
the,
you mentioned that someone was retired off of it.
We have not met. There were changes that we addressed in the fall.
yeah,
We have not met as a new, established.
because we did review all of the committees at the beginning of the school year. So that did happen, to like, who is a part, like, of each committee, who's the lead of those committees.
But should
that
that
work
work to say
happened.
that we're ready for that committee to meet? That's what I'm saying. It's just, I think that's what we're saying.
And if we want to, obviously, yes, we're all for making that priority. And once if we want to push PTO and workers' comp off to not keep coming back to that and just focus on this, that's what we need to do.
I think we've made a good start on both of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not to negate the work that we have
Sure,
accomplished.
so we can push those, we've got them in a decent place, and we can come back to those later and really focus on this.
I'm thinking out loud, which is dangerous. Is this a situation where we might want to each come with ideas of what this language looks like, but have the elementary plan time committee involved in giving feedback and providing, rather than charging their committee with starting from scratch with new language? I don't know if that's better, but it might be faster.
Do we need mock-ups of the schedule first?
We don't have a schedule
Yeah.
like in our agreement, we
I
just
know,
have.
it is middle, so it's.
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, the scheduling document though. Use an appendix B.
are you- okay.
My concern is that if we, by the time we get a committee together, have them start meeting, whatever we charge them with, set a deadline for them, then it's the middle of May,
Yes.
and that's too late. But if we are involving those members in getting feedback on a quicker way from, on proposals that are coming from this body, I don't know.
That's what we did with the others.
I don't want to negotiate away from the table that you, Shelby, you and Leanne are both on the elementary playtime committee along with me. Can the three of us just talk and figure out what we want to get out of it, how quickly and when to meet?
I think we need a charge from this group. I think we can absolutely figure out if we're going to meet, when to meet, and who's on it, but
I think the charge is a proposed elementary scheduling document, right?
I think that if yes.
Wouldn't it be the elementary scheduling document, because that is the governing document that tells us how we can work in our days, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. So the charge is
Yeah.
basically what recommended changes to the elementary scheduling document.
For each group, not the committee. That's what I heard.
Or no, that was a different thing I said. but
Okay.
no, I think now we're talking about the charge for the committee.
Yes.
Okay. Is the charge recommendations of changes to elementary scheduling document, period? Or is the charge recommendations to elementary scheduling document for the items that we had in the MOU? Or is that not big enough? I'm trying to figure out how to make this
Yeah.
manageable.
Yeah.
We did not, I don't think we were aware of the CLA reduction.
We were not.
No.
So that's a piece that we didn't have an interest around A through E, A through D, Monday through Friday. I think we were operating under a mindset of that would still be what it is. So,
Going to start in.
yeah. And when will plan time be? What will happen with supervision? And the task force has fleshed out some of that information that can inform parts of this document, I think.
There are aspects of this, though, that an elementary plan committee is not gonna be able to figure out. The fact, I mean, I can speculate pretty strongly that we are gonna recommend we go through an A through D rotation, because that is really the only viable solution. That'll fit in 36 elementary buildings. That involves the hiring of 8 certified staff members to travel in between those buildings, because we will have no time to eat or use the restroom. It will be back to back to back to back to back. So there's aspects of this that the elementary plan time committee, I'm just gonna call it the elementary committee, can absolutely recommend to this body. There are things, though, that are out of our hands that I'm not in charge of, things that would fall to different departments.
Well, and some of that's probably having the global perspective to be able to see, because I don't know that it's hiring 8 certified staff members. I haven't gone and come through the schedules to look at maybe how are buildings paired to share staff, depending on the sections within buildings.
And I think we had some lingering questions that beyond the traveling specialist sections, that the that Jill and Liz were having to go back and they were meeting with transportation because we had questions about special ed, transportation. Itinerant staff schedules, so we have schedules that need to take into consideration, for instance, our band and strings instructors who work at all 3 levels. They were working with Martha Gable on that. Food service, they were working through breakfast and what does that look like, which I realize is not, well, lunches, that's a whole other thing, but supervision of that would need to be something taken into consideration.
Do we need to have Jill or Liz added to or take part in that committee?
Liz is
already
part
said
of
something.
Liz
it.
is on the list.
She went.
Okay.
Special chorus, I think, is a lingering question.
And given the short time frame, it might be the case that that committee comes out with like an agree to disagree things where there's 2 different proposals that come to for us to try and sort out, but just thinking through our experience on the salary schedule committee, if we had to do that in a shortened time frame, that's likely what would have come out of that.
At least it narrows what we have. And of course, someone who has. You're talking. What if language?
Uniform language is here. Okay, well, I guess I'll go back to, I feel like that there is a commitment to do 300 minutes of plan time for everybody. There are definitely going to be some individual kind of issues that will come up regarding how to staff the larger buildings with the multiple sections, but hopefully we have some very smart people over at Human Resources that will be able to figure that, out. Just one way or another, we're gonna have to.
I think it's important for us, for this committee to also consider that a ratification vote would determine if this is how we proceed. And I think this committee, or this body, needs to be prepared on what it will look like for an A through E rotation using our current language.
I think that's sort of what you contemplate on that.
Yeah.
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 In a world where we have to have an issue rotation, these are kind of what that might sound like. Is there consensus here that we would want the committee to prioritize an A through D, or would we leave that open for the committee? I don't know.
That's hard. I mean, me as the music teacher at Countryside have an opinion. As a member of professional council, I think we might as well keep all of the options open, and as an elementary committee, decide that that is not the way. I'm looking at you because like it doesn't. As a committee, decide that that is no longer a viable option to have. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to process
Yeah,
ways
yeah.
to make the decision
Ditto.
process
Ditto.
move.
Just streamline some other things down.
You feel good about where the chart is at, or I guess to you guys, because you.
I feel great.
I think that's what we can do right now.
I think it's what we could do right now. You know, the other thing that, I don't even know if I want to go into this, but the other thing that we can kind of take a look at is, let's say that we do end up recommending an A through D rotation. That would be for specials. There would maybe be some other considerations that other things would be able to be attached to a Monday through Friday kind of thing. We're talking the special rotation.
Yeah.
PLCs.
Yeah. Yes.
Just float that up. we'll talk.
That leaves the action items for the next meeting.
Update on elementary committee?
Yeah.
We got one agenda item.
That is item one.
Item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You guys have some time off. Discuss the other two more. Maybe.
Well,
Right.
we could try to save maybe like the last 30 minutes or something to revisit leave
Or
and
first 30 minutes, so that.
first 30 minutes to review leave and workers' comp, and then be ready at 4:30 to launch into an update from the elementary. Work.
Yep.
Next week is Wednesday again, back.
Yep.
Same that time.
Yes, I saw that.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah.
So we're just going to launch together.
Hi, my name is Leanne Rogers, and I currently serve as president of the Olathe National Education Association. This is my 37th year in the district, and most of my experience in the classroom was in primary grades with first and second graders. But I am so honored to serve in this role as the president of this amazing organization. You know, one of the great things about Olathe NEA is that as the full-time release president, I am able to respond to members' needs immediately and have conversations with leaders across our district to help them understand the impact that decisions and incidents have on the working conditions of our educators. I'm lucky that I get to sit down with our superintendent once a week, unless we have something big come up, and we just talk through what's happening in the district. What are the impacts on our staff? I feel like I have the opportunity to bring a human story to that conversation that as a leader of a very large school district in Kansas, they may not always have that perspective. We also talk through things that are happening at the legislature and how our organizations can work together to strengthen public education, and just ways that we can problem solve together so that things don't become a larger problem than they need to be.